That's what this is. This is totally what we're going to be doing.
So one big long commercial.
That's what it is.
All right, keep pushing buttons.
Keep pushing buttons.
Yeah.
So,
let's see here. We're not live yet, but we are recording for the podcast.
okay, so then I'm going to say,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. I did push a button, Mario, that
You did?
this might go to Facebook too.
How do I?
What are you doing?
Taking a picture of me and Pat. Get
there
in
you
here,
go.
Pat.
A selfie kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to hit a button. We'll see what happens. See if I can get the comments. All right. We should be live. I don't see a tick. Oh, yeah, 7-8 seconds. Yeah, I see it. Oh, we got pop-ups everywhere. Mario, say something.
Word up. What's going on?
Yep, I got the comments right here.
Yeah, we can see them.
New broadcast system over here.
Whoa, this is a big deal, Pat. You don't even know what we're into here.
No, I don't have a clue.
All right.
Am I going to regret this?
Oh, we got
Nope.
Brendan Fraser jumping in. Yeah.
Don't worry. Nobody will see it, Pat. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. What's going on, guys? I don't know if you guys were able to get off work and go out hunting today. I know these two cats over here did.
We sure did.
Yeah. But a little warm, but they still got into them a little bit, so that's good.
Hey.
What do you think of this morning?
Any day you're not in the office and you're in the field, like I'm all good. Not bad.
Yeah, we did a little bird watching and had fun with the ducks.
Yeah.
We had saw a couple close.
We've got Earl Todd over here. Long time no see.
Hey, Earl, what's up, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Earl, Oregon checking in.
Yeah.
I want to see who's going to check in from New Zealand if I know him.
Yeah.
Because you guys have been getting somebody from New Zealand all the time.
Owen Miller.
Owen Miller. I don't know if I know Owen Miller.
Yeah.
I've been down there twice. Know a bunch of people down there. Great people. Love it down there. I love the guys at Hunting, Fishing New Zealand and all those cats down there. My buddy Jeff the Killer Irvine. Yeah.
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 What's the time zone there right now? How many hours
Oh my
away?
God! Let's see what it is. Well, they're in a different hemisphere, so.
Oh
Yeah.
It's 12:08 p.m.
It's midnight.
Yeah.
Or no, it's lunch.
It's high noon.
It's lunch.
It's high
yeah.
noon.
Perfect time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To tune in.
Yeah. It's 11 p.m. in Iceland.
In Iceland.
Yeah, the Viking. If he's listening.
All right, we got no birds left in Michigan. Some guys are still waiting on birds. They say from Canada.
What?
And the next guy was love your giveaways. So,
I appreciate it.
yeah, so
we're gonna keep doing it.
We're doing a live podcast here. It's recorded, and we're doing it live on Facebook, and we'll post it on YouTube after this. But
Cool.
if you guys don't know, we have Mario Friendy here with FA. He stopped by for some meetings, and we have FA's live series mallards, Decoy Carver, Pat Godin, here with Mario hanging out.
You gotta give him a better intro than that. We're talking about 17-time world carving champion, 4 different categories. Well, that's just the world wins. You have a bunch of other wins. I'm gonna talk you up right now, Pat, because I know you're not gonna do it. So, you're as humble and as nice as they come, and your work is incredible. So, and you do incredible work for us.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
Going back, 40, 45 years carving birds. It's
See, Chandler didn't get to listen to the awesome history this morning of Pat, so I'm gonna just let you just.
Well, neither did the listeners.
Well,
here,
that's what I'm saying. Well, we're gonna do some YouTube stuff off of that stuff this morning, but I'm telling you, so I'm just gonna let Pat run with it. So you started what age when you started carving, Pat? And it was fishing lures first.
Yeah. I was 11 years old when I carved fishing lures out of wood, painted them up, and took them down to the local river and actually caught fish on them.
Yeah.
And then
what fish? What were you?
Well,
what were you targeting?
smallmouth bass, northern pike, those were the fish we always went for and around that area.
And then your first duck was
Yeah,
when?
the first duck, when I was 15 years old, 1968. Was only last year. It was 50 years since I made that first decoy.
Yeah.
In 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then.
How old were you then?
Well, I would have been 15.
15.
And that's the age when I could legally hunt in Ontario.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that kind of inspired me. I found a book in the library on how to carve duck decoys and started doing it. Then made a few hunting decoys after that. Then in the early 70s, like 73, I made my first competition decoy.
Yeah, but this is the part that blows me away. You did your first bird in what, 68?
68, yes.
Okay, and then, so 5 years later in 73, you enter your first enter your first
competition.
Yeah. So that's 5 years later. Then, 77.
76.
76, which is only 76, so 8 years later, right?
Yeah.
You win your first championship.
First world championship, yeah.
8 years after starting.
Yeah, and
the learning curve there, buddy,
three years after I started making the competition decoys.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking of this morning when you were talking is, has anybody done it faster from starting carving, or I should say from entering to winning a world championship?
No, probably not.
I mean, that's 3 years we're talking.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing, okay, I won that first world championship with a pair of common golden eyes, and 40 years later, in 2016, I won another world championship with a pair of golden eyes. 40 years later, in the same category, the world championship decorative decoy pairs, which is a drake and a hen of the species.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The only category Pat hasn't won in is an interpretive category, which really you said is not really much waterfowl at all. It's all.
It could be waterfowl,
But
but more likely you see other kinds of
Right.
birds.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we're not going to penalize them for not winning that one. So.
Yeah. So what got you to get really good at this carving? I mean, is it just a lot of late nights, or just doing it over and over again?
Well,
or?
I'll tell you more than anything, it's the passion I had for the birds, and just knowing that in the back of my mind I could make these wooden carvings and replicas of those live birds and make them look alive.
Yeah.
And I was confident I could do that. And I'd always been, since I was really young, really good with my hands, making things, and everything from the fishing lures and even before that. So much of what I do hinges on knowing the bird from inside out. The anatomy of the bird, the colors of the bird, the behavior of the bird, the character of the bird, and that's what I put in my carvings.
Gotcha. Yep. And did you have access to all the tool work or all the machines and stuff like that, or?
Well, it started off all hand, right?
Well, yeah. At the beginning, it was little carving knives and sometimes a rasp where I would, start to shape a little bit with a rasp. We didn't have power tools in those days.
That's right.
I use some power tools now, and then of course I had to learn how to paint almost from scratch. I had nobody to teach me how to paint, but I kind of figured it out. And through the years, and even to this day, I do things. How many years later? I still learn things, new things as I'm painting. I'm trying different things to bring my work to a higher level.
Yeah. So a lot of listeners probably don't know, and I don't know a ton, but what's all these categories and these carving competitions, and what's that like? I've personally never been to one. I don't know if everybody's been to one either. Have you been? You've been to a few of them?
Yeah. I mean, Pat will tell you the four that he's won are the majority of the. I mean, that's the waterfowl based ones. The other ones, like he said, interpretive. It could be a waterfowl, but he can go through and kind of explain a little bit about each category.
Oh yeah. Well, the other interesting thing is you go even to a competition like the World Championship, and there's a lot of carvers are intimidated, thinking, well, I can't compete at the World Show, but they have categories there from everything from the beginning rank novice all the way up through to world level. So anybody can go there and compete at the level that they feel comfortable with. And then within the show, they'll have a number of categories that primarily deal with decoy style birds. Everything from extreme decoratively finished birds with the most finest detail you can imagine on them. They take weeks and months to make, to the very simple, really true hunting decoys, and everything in between. So those are all lots of categories that deal with waterfowl, and then they have categories that deal with, you could make any kind of bird in the world, any species of bird in the world, and bring it there and compete. There would be a category where you could compete it.
So your category, so there's gunning, right?
Yeah, there's a gunning decoy category,
which is like you said, we talk about it is your hunting style, but another level up as far as detail.
Yeah. Well, they actually do have what you call a true gunning style category, and then they have a next level up where they allow you to do more elaborate painting. Then they have another level where they expect the bird to be a little bit more decorative and more animated, with really refined paint. And then they have the full decorative categories where you're rendering the most finest detail you can imagine, using everything from little grindstones to very finely edged wood burning tools. And then, of course, the paint. Some of the brushes I use, little tiny brush, like a size 1 brush. You can
barely see it.
Yeah, and those brushes are worth like $25 to $30 for one of those little brushes. But when you think of the fine detail I do, I kind of need those brushes to do that kind of fine work.
Yeah, because that highest category, like you're talking about the ultimate in carving detail, and then on top of it, the ultimate in paint detail.
Absolutely.
I mean,
then also at the more decorative level of carving the decoy, you also see a little bit more animation, sometimes extreme animation. The bird's preening, maybe the wing is out, exposed, and a lot of maybe undercut feathers to make that bird look like it's
extreme poses.
Yeah, extreme poses. Yeah, and that's where a lot of the creativity comes for the decorative carver, to come up and find things that are an idea or a concept that's a little unique that nobody's really explored.
Right.
And so that's it gets to the point where you master all the technical things. The big challenge is finding these really interesting, unique ideas that you can incorporate in a three-dimensional sculpture like that.
I mean, we're still. I mean, these are yours here. We're still playing catch up, trying to paint them as best we can, because the carving is so incredible, and trying to do a reproduction and trying to get it, as close as we can to what you envision. That's the thing that I wrestle with in my life.
Well, of course,
is trying to make you, feel proud about what comes back, because we get the carving, and then we get it to, we get it to the factory, we work on it, we work on the paint scheme and everything else, and we're just trying to get it to, obviously, where the customer's happy and going, man, look at that decoy. But in the back of my mind, I got you in mind the whole time.
It's mass-produced decoy. We gotta,
Well, I won't I'll never be angry at you for.
Well, I know that,
No,
but you're not.
I
that
know
guy,
you're
but I'm
doing
it.
doing the best job you can, and there's always compromises when you have to mass produce a product. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things. There's certain things in some of the carvings. There's certain things in paint what we could do and the steps and the level. I mean, listen, there's not, there isn't 5 guys at the factory that can paint like you. There's not. The 5 of them couldn't compete against you. They couldn't all get together and try to gang up on you. Like, nobody can paint like you over there or any of the carvers. It's tough to find great painters, but listen, we're doing all we can.
Some of them are catching up.
Yeah.
And I do some teaching. I run seminars, and I show them all my little tricks. and some of them catch on to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is Goldeneye your favorite to carve and sculpt and create, or is it just you got two wins with that one?
I'll tell you what. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what inspired me. Initially, I really, really loved goldeneyes because it was a bird really common in the area that we hunted when I was younger. On the late in the season, December. Almost everything's frozen up except the river. And the goldeneyes love the river. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of hunting on the local river, the Grand River in southern Ontario. And so it was almost, when we harvested a goldeneye, it was almost like a trophy. Like, those birds are so beautiful, and those pure, beautiful whites contrasting with that velvety black, and then that
Snow White,
and that iridescent green head, and it was such a cool bird. And the second championship I won 40 years later were with Barrow's goldeneyes.
right?
And that's a species that I don't have in my area, but I did enough research and really figured that bird out, and that is also it's clearly looks similar to the common goldeneye, but has very distinct differences too. And that is also a beautiful bird.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you get that bright purplish in the black on the head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll throw one at you, Mario. Look over here.
What are you gonna throw me? No.
Yeah.
These are some from
well,
I found
okay,
off
so
his website.
Okay, so just like we were talking about, so look at that widgeon in the middle there, right?
Yeah, that scolding widgeon.
That's like an extreme. That's like
that's
what Pat's talking about, right?
That's a full decorative bird, and if we could see that up really close, every feather barb on each of those feathers is etched in with the wood burning tool.
Yeah.
And then the paint is just really exceptionally refined.
Yeah.
The other thing I do on those birds is I do it on almost everything. A lot of my painting, I paint like an artist does on a two-dimensional surface like a canvas.
Right.
They create the illusion of a three-dimensional object by using the feeling of light falling on the surface of the object, whether it's an animal or something else they're painting. They create the illusion of 3 dimensions on a two-dimensional surface. I do a similar thing on that. I paint the feeling of light on the surface to make it look like the light is reflecting off the surface, and also painting shadow to enhance the dimensions. I even do that on some of my simpler birds.
Yeah.
Rather than worry an awful lot about extreme detail, I concentrate a lot on getting that feeling of light falling on the surface of the bird.
That widgeon's sick. That's one of my favorite. I mean, pintail and widgeon there, incredible. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm not taking away from the wood duck, but the widgeon and the pintail is what I chase the most, so those are my favorites.
I'll just go ahead and jump into this one too.
No.
I just grabbed a few more.
Yeah.
The King Eider, and there's just a good.
Yeah, the King Eider is that's such a spectacular bird, and it's a bird I've never seen in the wild, but I've seen it in aviaries.
Right.
And you really have to go to the right place if you're hunting King Eiders.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I picked the ones on the right because they look like some crazy mergansers.
Oh yeah,
and the head detail.
The red-breasted mergansers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you got to look at the mergansers, and you got to understand that whole head. That's all wood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what people need to understand. That is, that flare coming off. That's wood.
I know,
Like if you screw that deal up, like, oh my God, that's what I said. The detail and the oh my God,
I think
it's
it's just cool to look at.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
It is a cool bird.
Yeah.
Hey, look at Owen Miller's. He said, he said, add a bit of black onto the back to mimic our mixed breeding mallards. Absolutely, the gray ducks and the mallards there, Owen. Don't worry, I got something coming for you, bro.
Mixed breed mallards, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
they have
what
a
are you
gray
talking
duck-
about? Hybrids, mallard hybridizing with something else?
They got a gray duck down there that is very similar to a hen mallard, but it's more of a gray base than a brown base. And they do interbreed with the mallards down there. The mallards and the grays are kings down there, so it's almost like our black ducks here.
Sure.
You know, they and you can. It's hard to tell the hybrids there or the mixed breeding there unless you really see some features. You know, it's kind of like the blacks here. You really got to look at some fine detail, but they got some cool birds down there. That's an awesome place. What else they got going on there? Yeah, I wish I could get that pintail. You got to dig deep for that pintail if you want something like that. Listen, if you got the change, you could call Pat and he'll make you something. But you're gonna have to break a couple piggy banks and be ready for it.
Yeah.
So this somebody's asking, Landon's asking the FA Gunners and the Live Series. So the Live Series are the new ones. That's these.
Yep.
And the Gunners are just the older style. He wants to know what the difference is. The Gunners are just the older style. To be honest, like the old Gunner style, like if you're hunting big water, big rivers, those are like a really thick, wide decoy. And I actually like those on the river for the width and the way they ride.
Yeah.
And it just says blemish because they're older. We're just discounting them and trying to get through the old inventory because we just got some and we got new cool stuff coming.
They're about 4 years, 3-4 years out of production.
Yeah.
So the Live Series are current, you know, just updated lots of things and stuff. The Gunners are just a little bit older model, but yeah.
Yeah, and listen, it's older carving, it's older everything. So it's not as updated as Pat's stuff and Pat's work, but you know, but still a good decoy. Man, we were blowing them out on price wise, so you can still get some deals. So go.
Yeah. Gotcha.
What else were we talking about this morning, Pat? We're going to have a really good video on YouTube, and whenever we get it done, Pat went through some incredible details about truly telling a young bird, immature mallard to a mature mallard. Just some incredible stuff. And we went through, and we actually finally shot one, huh?
Yeah,
an immature, like we were shooting mature birds,
we could
mature,
compare them.
And Pat's going, oh yeah, but I can't really show the other thing. And then we had one or two come in, and one was immature. So we're gonna have a YouTube video. We're gonna have that up on the FA page. It was, I'm telling you, it is killer. If you want to know a lot about mallards and stuff like that, that video is really cool. And you know, a thing to note on Pat, he could tell you, but Pat has a degree in mallards.
Well, yeah.
I mean, really.
My bachelor science degree was in fisheries and wildlife biology, but then when I did my master's, my first degree was like 4-year program, specializing in fisheries and wildlife, and then my master's degree, I actually did research on mallard ecology in a series of wetlands in southern Ontario. So that was kind of the bird that I spent so much time studying at that time.
Yeah.
And then I wrote my thesis on it, and parts of that thesis were actually published in some scientific journals. So a lot of this stuff that I was talking about as far as aging the bird,
Right.
you know, that's all stuff that I learned during my time at university when I was getting my degrees, plus my own curiosity in learning about these things.
That's why Pat does our mallards.
Yeah, Mario's like, I need a guy to make some mallards.
I mean,
he's got a master's.
He's got a PhD in mallards. Like, who else do you ask? You know what I'm saying? Like let's not be silly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I got a PhD in running my mouth is about it. So that's all. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing when I finished my master's degree, that's when I made a decision to carve birds full time. And so I can truly say carving ducks and other birds has been the only full-time job I've ever had.
Yeah, so you've never worked a day in your life, right?
Well, that's kind of true because
it's time and it's your passion, and we always go back to that. We always go back to that. Actually, my daughter's in volleyball. So look at this, Pat. So it says, "Never lose your passion for the game." You know what I'm saying? And that's the same. And that's how I feel about waterfowl.
Sure.
And I stole it from her because I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's exactly, but that's what we go back to. You talk about, why do you do this? Why have you done this so long? Because that's your passion. That's what you love to do.
Oh, yeah. I still, after, it was when I graduated, 1979, that's when I started carving birds full time, and all those years, 79, how long is that? Is that
30?
30? It's more than that.
40. Sorry, 40.
Is it more than that, maybe?
It's 40.
Yeah, 40 years. That's how long I made my living at it. And I still, to this very day, when I get in there and I'm working on a bird, I still get that passion and feeling to make that bird look alive. And
well, okay, so you talk about that. So it's like, how many times have you done a mallard? Do you know what I mean? And each time, like if I said, hey Pat, let's do a new mallard. You know what I mean? You've done how many mallards, and then you're still going to go in there and attack it like you've never done it before.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean? That's passion.
As many times as I've done a mallard or a pintail, or I've done some of those species many times over. When I start a new one, I go back and look at my original reference of the live bird. Because sometimes I think, well, I might see it a little bit different. Might be something there that maybe is unique. I haven't done before,
right.
And I can look at that live bird, and I'm not from one pintail or mallard to the next. I'm not duplicating that same design. I'm coming up with something new and original and unique.
Live bird reference. The live birds never lie. That's what you go by, What's the bird, waterfowl speaking, what's the bird that means the most to you? Which species?
If we're talking about waterfowl,
because I know we talked about the Golden-eye and the championships, but what is that, the bird, or is it another bird?
I've got a few birds that I kind of would put at the same level. Pintails are, that's such a bird that works so great from an artistic perspective.
Right.
And I've done a number of them with really complex designs, and you can really take advantage of those feather shapes that are so beautiful, and a lot of the graceful lines in the color scheme, and really do something great with that bird. So that's been one bird that I've really liked a lot. And you've seen pictures of those red-breasted mergansers. I think that is, people don't really care if they shoot them, or it's not a bird you want to eat, but it's such a to me a really dramatic bird.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a bird that I've always really liked doing.
Well, and now this is the cool thing that you always learn something as you go and talk to people or whatever. But your father-in-law was a carver.
Yes.
So your wife's father.
Yes.
Like, how crazy is that you would marry someone whose dad was a carver and a very good,
he was
accomplished, incredible carver.
Yeah, that was Jimmy Vizier from southern Louisiana, Cajun family, and he carved birds, decoys. He watched his father and his uncle carve decoys. They carved hunting decoys.
For hunting, right?
Yeah, they hunting was big in those days. And to a great degree, when they hunted in southern Louisiana at that time, they were hunting for food. Yeah, it wasn't a sport for them.
Right.
Because they were living off the land,
Right.
much like they would harvest shrimp and fish and
Yeah.
lots of other game.
Right in that coastal marsh,
Yes,
right?
but they needed decoys in those marshes and when they hunted ducks. And so he watched his, actually, Jimmy and his father and uncle carved, and then their father carved. So there was like 3 generations that carved decoys in southern Louisiana. And one of Jimmy's favorite birds to carve was the pintail, because he hunted them a lot.
Right.
And he competed in the competitions with pintails.
Yeah.
A lot. And in fact, the World Championship shooting rig, when Jimmy passed away, they named that in honor of him. It's called the Jimmy Veazey Memorial Award. It's a world level, so that's a huge honor. And I went. What year was it? In 2018, I decided to make a world shooting rig for the competition of pintails, and ended up winning with them. And
So that was
that was
a hat tip to him.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. And to win the Jimmy Veazey Memorial Award with pintails, and pintails had never won before.
Is that right?
Category, yeah, it was the first time. And so that was just probably one of the most emotional wins that I've ever had.
Right.
Because of that. And the interesting thing is, when they present the award from those awards that have been named after somebody, and there's a number of them at the World Show.
Right.
They usually have someone in the family representing the family to present the award. So I had my wife and children up on the stage to present the award to me for the World Championship. If I hadn't won it, they would have had to give it to somebody else. But
really?
Yeah. So that was
awesome.
That was really neat. Yes.
Well, Jimmy's his pintail book was the first book I picked up when I got to carving and I wanted to do a pintail. I wasn't near touching your patterns yet, so I was on Jimmy's book. I got to yours later, but that was the first book that I did, which was a great book, and you know what, his detail in the book on what to do, it was it was for a common man, I guess.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
I was reading it and going through it, and I was like, okay, I can do this. It was written in real words, I guess.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
it was. So it was awesome, and I have that book. I have a couple of your pattern books, which you have. That's what people don't understand. Well, not I don't know if they don't understand, but they need to know. Like, you have pattern books, you do seminars. Like this is without a doubt your life. You are in it.
As long as I can remember, ducks have been involved in my life.
It's awesome. It's awesome. That's what we all strive to do.
So when was the first competition for all this carving?
The actual. The World Championship?
That, or maybe do you hear about when they started happening?
Well, they had competitions before the World started, but this upcoming year, 2020, is the 50th anniversary for the World Show.
So it would have been 1950. Would have been
the
first, or would you say 50 years?
50
70.
years.
Okay,
yeah,
70.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, but I don't know all the history about it, but apparently there were some competitions for decoys going back a lot earlier than that, into the 50s and maybe even earlier.
Yeah.
And these are all, hunting decoys. It hadn't evolved into the more decorative decoys at the time. These were competitions for hunting decoys.
Right.
And there isn't much history written about that. So, I'm always kind of thinking about it. It'd be interesting for somebody to research that
And come up with all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you were talking about, I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but you're working on a book as well.
That's right. Yeah. I'm in the writing stage right now, and it's going to be a biographical book, and it'll cover a lot about my inspiration and a lot of the thoughts on how I approach my work, and there'll be a few technical things in there, but it's not a technical book.
Right.
But I inevitably, with something that is you might say, a very technical art form,
Right.
you kind of have to talk a little bit about that at
Sure.
times, because
Sure.
people reading a book like that are really curious about it.
There's no doubt. I mean, you're not getting that book unless you're extremely interested and
Yeah.
are into it.
Yeah, and actually, I also want to get it a lot into, like, a lot of my inspiration is the bird. Oh, most of it comes from the bird, my passion for the bird, but also all the technical things as well, and the science behind the bird.
Right.
I want to make sure that everything I do has a firm scientific background to it, or basis behind what I'm doing.
Right.
And so my book deals a lot with, and I've been, as I'm writing, I'm including a lot of the things that inspire me related to the science of the bird. And I kind of think I've got enough of that
going.
background to
Right.
make
Well, sure.
credible comments on that that part of the carving that I do.
And the the thing that comes through, and I've talked about this before, is there's a lot of carvers that can carve just about anything. If you live in an area where you maybe don't get a widgeon, I know you can carve a widgeon. There's no doubt there's guys that can, world champion carvers that can carve that widgeon. But the thing that I always go to is, do you nail the attitude of that bird? You know what I mean? There's just something else that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just hits it over the fence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. There's and that's something if I'm doing a bird, I haven't done a lot of that species, or maybe I've never done that species.
Right.
I really, really study the bird to try to catch the character of that bird. And a lot of times, like these more decorative decoys I do, when they judge them, they're actually put in a tank of water, so they have to float like a live bird. That's the
Yeah,
that's
you just
the real
can't make
standard.
a mantelpiece.
That's the real standard. They have to look like a live bird on the water. Even though I'm maybe, if I've spent 2 months doing all this intricate detail, they still have to float like a live bird. And some birds, if you look at them, they float different on the water. You look at a widgeon, to me, as a real buoyant bird. You look at a merganser, they have a real low profile, so
Yes.
they sit low in the water.
Yes.
So those things are things that I really look for when I'm trying to capture that character. Even sometimes the angle of the bill is a little different from one species to the other. So I'm looking at those things as well.
Yeah, there's always something. There's like a tell. There's always something. There's a couple things, like you said about the widgeon and stuff like that, and like the widgeon that we had up earlier on the, that's attitude. That's all attitude.
Oh yeah,
That's sassy.
yeah.
When there's a flock of anything on the water and widgeon are around, if they're pulling up food or grass or whatever, the widgeon are always there to be the little thieves and steal it. You know what I mean? They're just, they're just like that. So that's what I mean. They all have some kind of character to them. There's no doubt.
Yeah. That's ranks among one of my favorite ducks too. That widgeon.
Like you said, there's so much you could do. There's such a, I don't want to say comical, but there's so much. They do so much. They have so much flair, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you had commented the other day that you occasionally see the Eurasian widgeon.
We will, like, through the I-5 corridor, when you're coming down through Washington and Oregon. Washington gets more than we do, but coming through that slot, we will see them. I saw one last week, and I had them on the camera, but I had them on the camera. About 6 landed just off to the left of the boat, like, I don't know, 30, 35 yards. And, you know, obviously I'm not going to shoot them on the water, but a boat came down and spooked them all up, and they all came out, and it was me and my buddy. And I went through every one of them. There were 7. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and I could not find that sucker. I didn't even shoot then. My buddy dropped the drake, and I didn't even shoot. And I was so, like, I just, like, slumped at my waders, like I was like, crap.
Yeah.
Because I had the camera, I had it up, and I was snapping pictures, and I got him, and you saw the pictures.
Yeah.
It was good color and everything, and he skated on by.
That would have been a trophy for you.
So I was, you know, put my face in my mashed potatoes. That was it. I was kind of, I was kind of crapped out on that one. So, and we got, you know, we got more projects coming up for Pat and some mallards. We got some stuff in the can, so there'll be more stuff coming. So, you know, you're going to see Pat around Final Approach for a while. If he'll put up with us, you know, man, I love it. I love it. My buddy Don at home is a huge fan, and he called me last night when we were in the car going up to duck camp in the truck. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, I don't want to tell you. And he said, "What do you mean?" Now this is Don Guthrie. Don started Columbia River Decoys. Don carved all of them, and then I helped him I helped him do the company. I helped him like transition it. Then I started doing it, and then I carved a couple birds. But Don was really the start. And to be honest, as far as commercial birds and selling birds and detail and everything, Don was 20 years ahead of everybody else. Easy. Do you remember a guy named Hooker who was doing decoys?
Oh yeah.
So Don saw those hookers, and Don was like, "Oh, I think I could make a better hooker," and something like that. And that kind of inspired him to do some carvings, because when you hunted those hooker-style decoys, did you ever hunt them or no?
I never hunted them.
So the hooker-style decoys were hollow under here, and then they had a big long keel in the middle, and it came out just about as much as this, but this was all hollow, but they were real narrow. So when you hunted them in any kind of chop or weather, they always tipped over.
Yeah.
So you almost needed a wider base. So that started Don. So when he called me last night, he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, no, I'm not telling you." He's like, "What do you mean you're not telling me? What are you doing?" I said, I'm in the truck. I'm in the truck. We're heading to duck camp." "Oh, who's in the truck?" I said, "I'm not telling you." He said, who's with you?" I said, "I'm with Pat Godin." And you hear nothing. And he's like, "Oh, you lucky dog."
Yeah,
So
what he said.
Oh man, he was like, he did say, like, yeah, Don's a nice guy in the world. Don's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I'm so happy for you." He's like, "That's so cool." So yeah, Don, out of all the guys, and Don's a big time carver, was a woodworker forever, and house builder. You and Tom Christie. That's all he talks about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Tom's bluebills. That's what he loved.
Oh, but Tom does great bluebills.
Oh, he does great bluebills, and yeah. So he's all into it. So I'm living a little bit for Don right now.
Gotcha. So Pat, you've seen the decoy market. You've seen some decoys on the market change a lot through the years. I mean, could you talk about the first time you started seeing commercially produced decoys and using them in the field and stuff? And
Yeah, I can remember that when I was probably 15 years old when I could hunt. And I went and bought these two, I think only two, maybe three, hard plastic Victor decoys. And that's
yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that had the
They had a cross
on the bottom.
Yeah, that's exactly the decoy.
Did you have the mallards, or what did you find?
They were mallards.
My
yeah.
dad has a couple. He has a black duck and a mallard drake, I think is what he has at the house. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen him?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh my God, there's
that style.
It's a cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, there were not too many decoys available at the time. And of course I wasn't going to travel a long way to try to find decoys because I couldn't even drive a car at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I bought those. I think like I said, I think it was 3 decoys, and that, and then, well, there was at one point there was quite an evolution in decoys, and eventually the plastic market really took off, and
Yeah.
there was a number of companies that came out with well, at one point they became more realistic.
Yes. Yes.
And so some of the product development people were recruiting, really talented carvers to start to make the models for these things.
Yeah, to make it more lifelike, and then try to mimic the paint schemes, and the commercial was definitely chasing. Commercial side was definitely chasing the actual, world championship carver side.
Yes.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. And it's, when you look at what's available now and what was available back in, in the 60s and 70s,
Right.
there's been a lot of changes in the evolution of these decoys. And, I guess when you think of it, a real purist would want to hunt only with wooden decoys.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But, most people can't. Either they can't carve them themselves, or to try to accumulate a rig of wooden decoys by buying them, it costs you a lot of money
Yeah.
to buy those, really decent quality wooden decoys.
Well, listen, I took him over to the store yesterday. I lost him for a little bit, and then we wandered up and down the decoy aisles just like kids.
Yeah. It gets,
So you tell them what you thought of the store?
Well, it was overwhelming to walk in there. They go, where do you start?
Yeah.
To look at all the products. I spent some time in the fishing section and looked at all that, and then the clothing section is just, I think you have to go in there kind of knowing what you're looking for, so you can kind of focus on a zone where you can find the products that you want.
If not, you'll go in at lunch and you'll hear, all of a sudden you'll hear the store is closing in 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, whoa, I've been here all day.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
We've always enjoyed having about every stock of decoy that we carry out and open.
Yeah.
And in the store, we can see it and touch it, look
Oh,
at
that's
it.
a good question right there. So we were talking about this earlier. So your paint, or I'm sorry, your wood. What is the wood of your choice? Because a lot of different guys have different.
That's been just like everything else. That's been an evolution for me.
Right.
And I think the first competition decoy, I think I made it out of cedar. And cedar for a hunting decoy is a fantastic. That's probably one of the best woods you could ever use for a hunting decoy. But for the decorative decoys, really isn't. That isn't the best wood.
Because it's a soft wood.
Well, it has a lot of grain in it.
It does have a lot of grain.
Yeah, and it doesn't. To put fine detail, it's not nearly as good as some of the other woods. And
Correct.
then the next wood I used, I believe, was pine. And there's some actually white pine, really nice white pine that doesn't have knots in it.
Yeah.
Is actually a pretty nice wood to work with. And then a traditional wood that a lot of wood carvers, not just bird carvers, but other wood carvers use is basswood.
Yes.
So I used that for a while.
That always comes up. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the standard always talks about.
The problem with basswood is it's really quite heavy. And also, you often can't get it in big enough pieces to make
That is correct.
the body of, say, a mallard. You be very difficult to find a piece of wood that big without laminating it.
Correct.
And when you laminate a piece of wood for a decoy like that, and if you're putting detail in it, you're always dealing with a seam where you've laminated it, which is always creates some kind of an issue. And the wood is heavy, so for a decoy that's going to be floated in the water, even the decorative decoys, you have to hollow them. So that presents another.
Then you gotta figure out make it ride right.
Well, that's
there's your once you hollow it out.
Yeah, that's definitely an there's extra work involved in hollowing it and then doing all the other stuff and then of course sealing it back up together.
Right.
But the wood I use now, and a lot of the carvers have transitioned to that, quite a long time ago actually.
Right.
Is Tupelo.
Right.
And Tupelo, it grows in cypress swamps in southern Louisiana or Mississippi, and also there's some that's growing along the East Coast, like North Carolina.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, there's some North Carolina Tupelo. The advantage of Tupelo is you can get really, really big pieces of it.
Gotcha.
So you can do very large birds
or a whole a whole scene or whatever you need to do.
Well, I know a carver that made a life-size bald eagle out of one big chunk of wood.
Wow.
He didn't have to laminate anything together.
Really?
It was one piece of wood. And the other thing is it's really, really light. So normally if you get quality Tupelo, you don't have to worry about hollowing it to make it float properly.
Yeah.
You might have to put a keel on it, maybe some lead ballast weight to adjust the flotation, but it'll be plenty buoyant.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the main wood I use for to this day for.
And then paint, like when you're painting. Is there any secret paint you're using? You don't need to give away your secrets, but
no.
is there just like a type, like not a brand or so, but just is it a lacquer paint? Is it a
No, there's two main types of paint that Decoy Carvers use. There's the oil paints and there's the acrylic paints.
Yep.
Those are two main things. And
Right.
a lot of the difference there is with oil paints, it's there's a when you apply oil paint to a surface like that, as it cures, there's chemical changes that happen that sometimes create patina. So the color actually changes over a long period of time, which for some styles of decoy carving, that's actually a good thing.
right?
The paint that I use is acrylic paint, and what happens with that paint as the paint cures, it's a physical change. Basically, the water evaporates out of the paint, and then it cures into a hard, permanent surface.
Right.
So that there's really in the application of the paint is quite different between oil and acrylic paints. And I could talk for hours on the difference between oil and acrylic paints and all the techniques that I use to paint with acrylics. But a lot of it's layering multiple thin applications of paint over the surface to build depth in the color.
Right.
One thing I do with my more decorative birds is build paint so that I create the illusion of translucence. I try to make it look like you see through layers of feathers. And if you look at a feather on a real bird and you hold it up against a light background, a light source or something, you can see how translucent it is.
Right.
So if you're looking at a real duck, you're actually seeing layers of paint or layers of feathers.
So you're trying to get that exact.
I'm creating the illusion that you're seeing that.
Right.
And so it's just kicking my level of my paint up to a higher level by painting the illusion of light and also translucence.
Right.
So he was.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
I was just gonna have Pat go through because I'm sure, just like you're trying to get more people into waterfowling, you want to get more people into carving and into that tradition, and so if somebody wanted to start, like the only thing that I would say is, there's a ton of stuff online. Get some pattern books.
Yeah.
Do your research.
So for someone who doesn't know what a pattern book is, can you explain that?
So like say like Pat's made a couple. I don't know how many.
Well, I made 4 different pattern books. Only one's available. The other 3 are out of print, but I have one available, and
So a pattern book is I want to carve a mallard. So Pat's got a pattern book. So you open up the pattern book and there it is. It's the size. You could cut it out or make a photocopy of it and put it on the piece of wood and draw the outside pattern of what you want to look like,
Yep.
and all the detail from the top, the side, the head, everything. So
Yeah,
the
and
pattern is the groundwork.
Yeah, and it's line drawing with pattern or feather patterns marked on it. It's got the side view shape, the top view shape.
And it's all everything's measured out, so
Yeah,
you know, like I said,
I
exactly.
make those patterns on a drafting table, so everything lines up real nice. So, when you cut your bird out and you start to use the pattern, everything should line up real nice.
Right.
So there's a lot of resources out there right now to learn how to carve a duck decoy, and there's a Facebook page, Decoy Carving Forum.
Yeah.
You could join that, and there's all kinds of people. If you have a question about something, everybody's willing to help you.
It's a very awesome group of folks that are willing to help to keep the tradition going and stuff like that. There's what's the magazine? Wildfowl Carving.
Wildfowl Carving magazine.
That magazine, I've been getting that magazine since whatever.
Yep, you can subscribe to that. Yeah, you can. They have every issue. They have technical articles on. Somebody shows how to do different things with different kinds of birds, and they'll sometimes feature a carver and show their work. And
it's pretty incredible, that book, the magazine.
Yeah. And there's quite a lot of carving shows too.
Yes.
You can go there and get inspiration by looking and seeing what people are doing, and again, those people at these carving shows, everybody's willing to help. If you got a question about something, and you can also pick up all your tools there.
Yes.
They'll have dealers there selling all the different tools and painting supplies, and they're very willing to help you because, of course, they want to sell you the products, but they want to direct you in the right place
they're not,
so that you get the right things.
They're not trying to sell you something that your level's not ready for. They're trying to get you into it so you build and go.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing about it is, the thing that I always used to do is it was always an off-season thing for me. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do all summer? You know what I mean? Drive everybody crazy, like work the dog. What else are you going to do? I was always working on decoys. Always. That was always my thing. So.
Yeah. And there's somebody asking a question about an airbrush.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you use an airbrush?
Well,
Pat?
I do use an airbrush, but that's just one of several tools I use to blend my paints. And it's there are some areas where an airbrush is just an incredible tool to have.
No doubt.
And there are other areas where I purposely avoid using an airbrush because I don't want, say, an airbrush look. So I have other methods that I use to blend the paints.
Yeah, different tools for different jobs.
Absolutely. It's, I don't like to become reliant on one method or, I'm always experimenting with different things. Even up to this day, I still try to find different ways to do things.
Yep. Excuse me. They said I use Pat's reference pictures all the time. There's no doubt for the flocking and stuff like that. Pat's pictures are incredible. The patterns are incredible. Gary's asking costs to get started carving. Like, listen, Gary, I got started. I'll just say how I got started. I mean, I got all hand tools. That's the easiest way to get started. But now, like, you can get some hand tools. If you buy a really good set of hand tools, which are knives, rasps, things like that, to get a different. Every tool has something different that it does. Just buy yourself a big box of Band-Aids because you're going to use it. I can guarantee you that. So, right?
Well, I still cut my fingers.
That's why I said. So I'm just telling you, as a novice, as you get started, get some Band-Aids. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, you can get like the Fordham tools and the Dremel tools, and that stuff has the pricing has gotten so low on stuff like that. Like, it used to be a couple $100. Now it's so much more affordable, which is the power tools. Like you know what I'm saying? The Dremel. Everybody I think knows Dremel. But Fordham is a different tool. It's more of a carving based tool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anybody else use that or even hear that name. Right.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Now there's If you as you advance in carving, there are a number of other tools that
Absolutely.
are more cost more. But I'll tell you what, when you get them and use them, you'll wish you had them
A long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of those little high-powered rotary power tools we use. There's a number of brands that we use. There's the Guesswine, the Ram tools.
Oh, the guess one, yeah.
Yeah, and the Ram tools to do real fine work with little diamond cutters and
Yeah.
stones and stuff. They run so smooth. The bearings in them are so good. You can work
It's the ultimate.
you can work for hours without your fatiguing your hand
Gotcha.
because there's no vibration in them.
Gotcha.
You still have to learn to control them. That's part of the learning the techniques, the carving techniques.
Would you say like hand tools and a Dremel or a Fordham, something like that to start? Is that what you would say?
I started with hand tools, but then the first power tools I had were the bigger Fordham tools,
Yeah.
where I could really take a lot of wood off fast.
Right.
And then the Dremel, which gave me a little bit
Small,
more
right.
refinement because
Right.
it was a smaller, more refined tool.
And
yeah,
then
those
a little burning tool.
the burning
That's
tools.
my favorite. That's my favorite.
You can buy
I love
burning
burning.
tools at you might say a low priced burning tool that
No
works great, and then you can get a little bit more advanced burning tools. And
I love to paint, but I love burning feathers in. I love it. I sit there like people are like, "How can you do that?" Like I can do that all day.
Yeah.
I love doing that.
that's one of the more tedious things
Yes.
we do.
But like just the smell and
Yeah,
doing it and
sure.
just I don't know, that part to me, I just I don't know, I love doing that part.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have a ballpark idea?
Oh
Number,
God,
throw it out there?
he can get into it for $200. He can get really into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Get
Dremel
started.
tools. Holy crap! The Dremel tools at Home Depot or something. You go in,
Yeah.
they're hardly anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the Fordham's a little bit more, and that's just bigger. Like Pat said, that's just a bigger tool to get more wood off.
Yeah.
But you could use a bunch of those hand tools, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I still use a little draw knife and
Oh, yeah.
and gouges and chisels
Yeah.
when I'm starting to rough my bird out. When you use those tools, you have to be able to clamp it in a vise because you need to have control with both hands.
yeah,
so,
you can't.
So you need a
So don't do this,
no.
because that's a sure way to use the Band-Aids.
Well, yeah, and you could do more than that. Cut your finger off
There's
if you're not
no
careful.
doubt.
Yeah.
Extremely sharp
But
tools.
yeah, so if you're using those tools, those kind of tools, you need maybe a little workbench with
Yeah.
a little vise on it, and you can go to town with it.
Yeah. Just do some research and see what you need, and go for it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. How much space does it take up in your garage?
Well,
I mean, Pat's probably got.
Pat's got
Yeah.
like a shop, like a legit. How big's your shop?
Well, actually, the rooms I work in, I'm the only one that works there, so I don't
Right.
need a lot of space.
Right.
So I've got a carving room,
Right.
and I've got a painting room because I don't want the dust in the painting
Correct.
room.
Correct.
So I purposely set that up a long time ago.
Right.
And I don't have a real, might say, a glamorous, spectacular shop, but
Right.
it serves its purpose, and
Right.
I get everything done there.
I have mine separate too. My paint booth is bigger, but
Because you like to get crazy with all the painting.
yeah. And there's always a project that I'm like, let's paint my son's like lacrosse helmet, or or he wants to paint his bike or whatever. I'm like, I love to paint too, so I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. Hey, paint the boat. I don't think I got room for that, but let me figure that one out.
Yeah.
So it's something like that. So yeah. There's always a project.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
awesome.
Somebody mentioned Jody Hellman there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great carver.
Is he?
And it's a stylized type of carving, and has his own unique style, and he's good. He's good at it.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's that for
People
chipping
jumping
away
in,
in an
yeah.
hour? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
See, I talk for a living. See, I told you we could get through. And you think we could get through an hour? Oh, we can get through an hour.
Yeah.
I'll draw it out of you like blood. I got you.
So for you guys watching, and you can see in front of us are 2 decoys. These are the live mallards from Final Approach.
Yep.
And Pat over here, he's the one who carved them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love the detail, and I love the size of them. We were very fortunate. The size of this decoy is just big enough. We don't call it an oversized, but I think it's a great size.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Great look to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're at about 17.5 inches right in there, like give or take, a couple different ones.
Depending on which bird you...
Right. So I'll just say we're just shy of 18, so we're right in there. So
you're talking right from the tip of the bill to the tip of the tail? The bodies, I believe, are, 15? I think.
Yeah.
The body length from the breast to the tip of the tail. And a live mallard, I believe, is maybe closer to 14, so we're just a little bit.
So just a hair over life size, let's call it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But good looking on the water, ride nice, look nice. So, yeah, all we're trying to do at FA is just chase Pat, just try to chase what his dream is of. This is what the bird looks like, and we're just trying to reproduce it and chase it. So,
yeah,
we're getting better. We're chipping away at it.
All right. Well, Mario, any last things we're good?
No. Listen, on the Final Approach side, I mean, go check us out. Go like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Go to the YouTube channel. We got a bunch of videos about the products, and we're putting stuff like this up, and the podcasts are up. We're chipping away at some of those. So, I mean, just if you got questions, go to fabrand.com. Everything's up on the website. You guys at Rogers, you guys have been selling a pile of our stuff. We appreciate it. So you could always go to you guys. You guys always throw some great sales on and stuff like that. I mean, there's crazy sales. So go for it.
All right.
Pat, appreciate it.
Yeah,
I love the info, and thanks for, joining us too, clowns.
I enjoyed talking with you.
Awesome.
What'd you think of the Missouri duck hunting this morning?
Loved it. Like I said, listen, anytime I can get out of the rain, which it hasn't been a very rainy year this year in Oregon, but anytime I could get out of the rain and go clear and cold or anything in cold, I'm in. You just sign me up. So I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
All right, my final thoughts are: if you're really a waterfowl nut, I mean, there's so many other things besides getting out there and shooting that you can get into. As far as you can even put carving and tinkering with calls, all that sort of stuff you can really get into. All these organizations. If you're really a waterfowl nut, there's so much more than just the getting out there and pulling a trigger, on weekends and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, listen, we shot 5 birds this morning between a bunch of us, and guess what? If you told me, hey, we're only going to shoot 3 tomorrow, do you want to get up? I'd just go, what time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't care.
Yeah.
So, don't matter, like, who's going? So-and-so's going, so-and-so. Is the dog going? Dog's going. I'm going. I'm in. So, don't matter to me.
All right.
I love it.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap this up. Thanks for watching live. We got one last question here. Does Pat use Clearcoat?
Oh, actually, the acrylic paints I use are incredibly durable.
Right.
Really?
And I get a real nice flat and velvety surface with them, and I don't want to alter that with any kind of finish on top of it.
On that,
because I know the paint is very, very durable.
Very good.
And even for a hunting decoy, if somebody's going to use, there's some acrylic paints you probably don't want to use, but some of them are really very, very durable. And you could use them on a hunting decoy, and they would last really well.
Right. But not on a plastic. You'd have to do some prep on a plastic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Plastic's
absolutely.
like, that's next level. You got to do your research on that deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Awesome.
This will be posted on YouTube if you want to watch it, or on our Rogers podcast, or we're throwing it on the FA podcast,
Yeah, we're going
too.
to throw it up on there, too. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.